This is Between the Brackets, a MediaWiki podcast, episode 2, February 20th, 2018. Welcome to the second episode of Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren. One of the strengths of MediaWiki that doesn't get as much attention as it should is that it's the best translated software in the world. MediaWiki is available in almost 300 languages, which includes every language you've ever heard of, except for fake ones like Klingon. It includes defunct languages like Ancient Greek, obscure languages like Volapük, which is a predecessor of Esperanto, if you're wondering, and a bunch of dialects that you might not think of as separate languages like Canadian English. And if there's any one person who's responsible for that state of things, I'd say it's my next guest, Niklas Laxström, also known as Nike Rabbit, who is the creator and co-maintainer of TranslateWiki.net. That's the wiki where translators of the software create translations of individual snippets of text from MediaWiki. TranslateWiki has something like 10,000 users who are signed up to be translators, and the site is used to translate not just MediaWiki, but a number of other open-source applications, most notably OpenStreetMap. Besides translating the software, Niklas is also heavily involved in software that enables translation of wiki content, which we'll also get to. He does that as part of his job as a developer for the Wikimedia Foundation in the language group. Finally, he also does MediaWiki-related consulting. Hi, Niklas. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Where are you right now?
I'm based in Helsinki, Finland.
So you're Finnish, but you have a Swedish-sounding name, I think.
Yes, so one half of my family is Swedish-speaking Finns, but unfortunately my parents didn't teach my Swedish, so my Swedish skills are what I learned in the school. So I'm basically, Finnish is my mother language.
I see, okay. And actually I was thinking Linus Torvalds, who's I think Finland's most famous tech person, is sort of in the same, comes from the same group, Swedish Finns.
Yeah.
Cool. So when did you discover Wikipedia?
I don't remember the exact time when I first discovered it. I was searching for something and it appeared in the search results, but it must have been like 2003 or 2004, something like that. But
Yeah.
I didn't get involved back then. It took a couple of years before I found Finnish Wikipedia and started contributing there.
But you must have started getting into Wikipedia and Mediawiki development pretty soon after that.
Yeah, that's true. The earliest records of me submitting patches for adding Finnish translations are from 2004 or 5, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. And how old were you at that point?
Pretty young. Something like, maybe 15, 16.
Yeah, okay. And how did that lead to the creation of TranslateWiki.net?
Well, it was pretty straightforward. At that time, MediaWiki was still using Bugzilla as the development tool, in the sense that you had to submit patches as text files in Bugzilla, and someone else would have a look, and if it was good, they would put it into CVS. That was the version control system at the time. And I was pretty new to these kind of systems at the time, and writing translations in PHP files was very error prone. Just forgetting one command, the file doesn't compile, and then the whole wiki is broken. So I I basically started writing a better tool for myself, and starting with the MediaWiki itself, which already had this page special all messages, which listed all the messages. Was like it was my starting point, but I started developing it into a proper translation tool.
Yeah, okay. And Translate Wiki, you released it originally as Beta Wiki, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, actually there's one step before that. I mean, I created my own wiki. It was not about translation or anything. It was like some school projects and that kind of stuff. Just getting hands-on with MediaWiki. And that was called NukaWiki. I don't remember where the name comes, but I think that's actually the same wiki in the sense that the database comes from back of those times or close to it. And once I published BetaWiki, and it was not located on my laptop but on a proper server, it was called BetaWiki at the time, because I also used it for all kinds of development work at the same time, which looking back wasn't something I would do these days. I would have a separate environment for that.
Yeah. And originally, right now it uses an extension called Translate, which does a lot of the work. In the beginning, was that extension always there, or was it more ad hoc code at the beginning?
It was more ad hoc. I was basically writing what would you call local patches or local modifications to the core code. And at some point I started making it a separate extension, first by moving the code and then actually creating an extension named Translate and publishing it.
Yeah. A guy named Zebran Maisland is the other main maintainer of TranslateWiki.net. How did he get involved?
I'm not sure actually, but it was a long time ago, and
right.
He has been a very significant person for TranslateWiki.net, bringing it much forward from what I would have done alone.
TranslateWiki.net, it's in an interesting position. It's not an official Wikimedia site, but all the Wikimedia sites rely on it indirectly for all their translations. And actually, so does everyone who uses MediaWiki. I think it's not official anyway.
No, it's not official.
Yeah, okay. So who pays for it, and what guarantee is there that it'll keep going?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking this question a lot, and I've actually been just today writing a succession plan to figure out what kind of roles we have. But about your question about who is paying it, it's basically zero-cost project at this time.
Yeah.
Our servers are sponsored by a company called Netcap.
I see.
And basically the only cost is the domain names.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was really just wondering. I'm not trying to make anyone nervous that it'll go away. I think it's more of a theoretical question at this point.
No, it's not going away, but having said that, the current situation is, I would say it's a little bit unstable in the sense that, I mean, things will go on as they are right now, and unless something special happens to me, I will always be taking care of TranslateWiki.net. But I'm also thinking how to make it more sustainable in the sense that it only doesn't depend on me, but there's more work, more people sharing the workload, and if someone goes away, there's other people to pick up and so on.
Right. So I mentioned the Translate extension, which is the main software, as far as I understand, used on Translate Wiki. Interestingly, it's also the main software used to do translation of content within any wiki. Not the software, but the content itself. How did the idea come about to use the same extension for both things, for both MediaWiki translation and wiki content translation?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious that we have this translation interface in the translation editor, and everything that is being translated plugs in some way. But there's a component that knows how to read the localization files of MediaWiki, for example, and convert that to internal structures that the interface understands. And then having translatable pages was just writing a component that can take wiki text and make it look to the interface like any other translatable thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The biggest thing there really is that while translating software, the messages are like separate short snippets of text, but wiki pages are like this long mass of text.
Right.
And the extension splits it into smaller parts, so it is easier to translate and track changes to each of those units.
Right, usually at the paragraph level.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Wikimedia Foundation language team, which you're a part of, I believe. Yeah, you are. Sorry. Puts together something called the MediaWiki Language Extension Bundle, or MLEB, I guess, which is a collection of, I think, 6 translation and localization related extensions, including Translate. Are you involved in putting that together and in maintaining it?
Well, I think I proposed the idea of creating such bundle, and it's of course made for any third-party use of MediaWiki as an easy way to get all the translation and multilingual features of MediaWiki. And these days, also the team members are helping to write the release notes and test the releases.
Yeah, and do you recommend that bundle for anyone who wants to do translation on their wiki, or are there some cases where just the Translate extension is enough?
I would recommend the bundle unless you know what you are doing, because there are dependencies on Translate on other extensions like the Universal Language Selector, and those are useful in general, like you want people to be able to choose their language, so it makes sense to have them all.
Yeah. All right. What can you tell me about Project Milkshake?
That's a project started by the language team, and the goal was to create reusable libraries, not just for Wikimedia, but the idea was that any open source project could use those libraries as well. And the libraries were there were 4 components. One is a language selector, and the previously mentioned Universal Language Selector extensions use a jQuery ULS library that is part of Milkshake. And the other components are a library for web fonts, library for input methods. So basically, even if your operating system or keyboard doesn't support writing, for example, Cyrillic Russian, you can use that library on any website where it's available.
So So yeah, the idea is it would be used potentially not just with MediaWiki.
Yeah. It could be used on any website. Just jQuery is a dependency for them.
Is that software under active development at the moment?
No, I would say it's under maintenance mode.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we could take contributions for
I mean,
new languages and so, but it's pretty stable otherwise.
Okay. It certainly makes a lot of sense that something like that should exist. Is there any other software that does that sort of thing, enables swapping in translation messages in JavaScript?
Well, things were different back then, and for various reasons, the Milkshake libraries are not very popular these days, and there are a lot of alternatives. For example, Google has released their input methods as a library as well, I think.
Oh, okay. You're also involved heavily in other kinds of MediaWiki development. Actually, you contributed so many patches to my replace text extension that you're listed as a co-author. Has all your development work been related to translation and internationalization in one way or another?
That's definitely been the main focus for me all these years, but I've also been doing lots of coding here and there for various reasons. Well, basically for my own needs or what's required for work.
Yeah, okay. I said at the beginning that MediaWiki is the best translated software in the world. Would you agree with that statement?
In terms of number of languages, I think it is, but I would also highlight that it probably has among the best support for like handling multilingual content or content that's translatable.
Okay. You were involved for some amount of time in an attempt to create sites like translatewiki.net, but in a for-profit way for commercial use. That makes perfect sense to me. I mean, there are thousands of for-profit software applications and websites out there that could benefit from more internationalization. The TranslateWiki model is probably the best way to do it, I would think, rather than just hiring translation companies. So what exactly was the business model there? Was the idea that translators would get paid, like per translation?
Well, the idea was at that time to use our existing tools like a kind of hosting platform so that the companies that want to have something translated, they could pay us to use that platform and also to get translations via various means, like we could interface with translation agencies, various kinds, and one of the issues was that we didn't really bring the volunteers to that project in any meaningful way. So it was basically, well, the issue basically was that it was kind of middle hand that was supposed to make things easier, but most companies probably interact with translation agencies directly rather than joining with this kind of platform.
So did you get any customers? What happened with the concept?
Well, another big problem was that I was part-time doing this with all the other stuff, and we just didn't have, like, I don't like the word resources, but we didn't get the thing rolling on in a way that it would grow. So we just had some well, a few customers signed the beta service, but then we just see that it didn't work and shut down that project.
Yeah, okay. Well, I still think it's a great idea. So if there's anyone out there who runs a commercial software project or just a website that they want translated or have the translation be broader, I'd suggest you get in touch with Niklas. I still think there's a future for this kind of thing. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest to pay attention how to incorporate like the volunteer translators, and how to ensure quality for those. I think those are the main questions to be solved.
All right. Moving on, you've also done MediaWiki consulting. On our first episode, we had Cindy Chicalese, who I thought was a good choice because she's done both enterprise MediaWiki work and Wikimedia related work. And you've actually done both as well, although you went in the other direction, starting off with Wikipedia and Wikimedia focus before you started doing work related to outside MediaWiki instances. How did you get started with consulting?
Well, the long story short is that I was like known in my university where I was studying for my master thesis that I'm the wiki person. And one of my professors looped me into a working group where they were building, well, they were going to build a platform to host and build a Finnish terminology for arts and sciences in a collaborative way. And I guess Wiki was one alternative for them, and of course, as a Wiki person, I was there to tell what are the benefits and drawbacks of Wiki approach, and in the end they decided to have a Wiki, so that's how I got my first side project.
Are you still involved with that Wiki?
Yes, on and off. I'm not officially maintaining it, but right now I'm helping them to upgrade to latest version of MediaWiki.
Yeah, okay. And what kinds of other projects have you done?
The other projects are in some ways similar in the sense that they are about words as in terminology or dictionaries, or they have some multilingual aspect. So one other example is this project I did the National Bureau of Antiquities here in Finland. They wanted to collect this living heritage, like intangible things, in a collaborative way involving the general public, and they probably heard of me because of the first project. So they also decided to choose a wiki approach, and I helped them to create a wiki where people can write things like sauna or the fishing culture in Finland, and have those written in Finnish or Swedish or Sami language, the official languages in Finland, also Romani language.
Right. Yeah. Cool, and we'll have a link to that on the website, along with links to a bunch of other things that we've talked about. This gets to something I've personally been wondering about, and I'm guessing other people listening will be wondering as well. When I've done consulting, I would say maybe the trickiest issue I've had to deal with is translation of content. because I never quite know what to recommend. I mean, as far as I can think, there are four main ways of doing translation. First is the Wikipedia way, where you just have separate wikis for each language. And there are some tools to help with, translating, creating a translation into a new language, so you don't have to start from scratch for every language. But that's the basic idea, that they're independent. Number two is that all the content is in one wiki, but all the pages are independently created. Number three is using the translate extension, where you have one master language, which I guess is almost always English. Well, not necessarily. But all the other content gets translated from that, and you have, suffixes or so forth for each translation, for each translated page. And then number four is just have one language and use a translation service like Google Translate to automatically do real-time translations, which there are a lot of browsers that support that. I actually helped create an extension that lets you do that within the wiki called Live Translate as part of a WikiWorks project a long time ago, but I don't actually know if that extension still works. Those are the four ones that I know of. There's actually, there's a fifth bonus futuristic one, which is that you could store all your data in some site like Wikidata and then automatically generate pages, not just info box pages, but free text too from that data into each language. That's happening to a very small extent on Wikipedia already. Well, info boxes is, to a moderate extent. There's been as far as I know, a tiny bit of creation of generation of free text in articles based on Wikidata, but it's far from a standard thing. I would guess that maybe within 10 to 15 years, there's going to be widespread automated generation of wiki pages on Wikipedia, at least for the less popular languages. But at least for now, that's still kind of in the realm of science fiction, I would say. Anyway, would you agree that those are the 4 or 5, if you want, standard ways of handling multiple languages in a wiki?
Well, first of all, there's no one single solution that would work for everyone. There are multiple different solutions, and it really depends on the context. Personally, I only use what you call number 3, I think, using the translate extension.
Right.
But it's a little bit more nuanced because even that has 2 different ways to do it. And first one is the what we call translatable wiki pages, which we talked about earlier, which involves marking up the page with tags, like which parts will be translated, and that will create a possibility to translate the page, and the translations will appear as separate pages using the convention of /language code in the page name. But there's also another approach that is using the int magic word in MediaWiki, and that can refer to like translatable interface messages, but it can also be used for content. And with some effort, this can also be hooked up in translation interface, but the main difference is that using this method, it doesn't create separate pages, but like the language of the page follows what is the language of the user using the wiki. So again, it depends on the case, which one is better approach for given situation.
Yeah, okay, very interesting. Yeah, I did know about that int thing, actually. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's called unstructured content translation or something like that in the translation documentation.
Yeah. Translate is a great tool, the Translate extension, and it's I've had a lot of documentation I've written on MediaWiki.org get translated with it, which is great. There is one issue with using Translate that I'm sure you're aware of, which is that each page that gets translated has to get filled up with a lot of tags that define the separate snippets that need to be translated individually. And that can make it hard to edit the page, especially if you're trying to do a restructuring, like move paragraphs around or split up paragraphs, that kind of thing. Is there anything that can be done about that?
Yes, this is a very well-known issue, and I myself find transferable pages hard to edit because of this. But on the other hand, the tags, or more specifically the section identifiers, are there to help you to restructure the page while not throwing away all the translations. So if you read the documentation and do the changes in a certain way, you can quite freely restructure the page without throwing away all the translations. But having said that, yes, it's a very annoying thing for editors, and I'm sure some pages are not getting translated because of it. There's no fix for it right now, but there are definitely plans that implements the same features without using those tags, and this probably will involve using the VisualEditor extension for MediaWiki in some way.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Is that's a project that's being discussed or thought about, or
It's been discussed for a couple of years. It's not yet on a roadmap, but very preliminary parts, maybe tweaking a little bit how the tags work. That kind of things are currently being done, but that's just first steps toward that direction. So it's quite a big project to actually bring it to the end and get rid of the tags.
I was thinking now that I know there's a project to allow annotation within wiki pages in one sense or another. I don't know to what extent, but the idea is people can put a side comment in the sidebar or something about some piece of text, highlight some snippet of text and specify something about it. I thought maybe that same kind of functionality could potentially be applied for translation.
Yeah, definitely. These kind of technologies like annotations or multi-content revisions for technical terms are being planned or even developed, and the situation keeps changing. When I started Translate, there wasn't VisualEditor. So now we have VisualEditor, and soon we will have ways to store annotations. So kind of the building blocks to reach the goal of no tags, they are coming in place step by step.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. The other thing I wanted to talk about regarding Translate is its use in conjunction with semantic MediaWiki and Cargo extensions. I can certainly see the appeal of that. I mean, you already have all this structured data, and it should, in theory, be possible to just define some translations for each piece of text within that structured data, and then be able to query and display the data in any language you've defined. I know you've spent a long time looking into this, and at some point you even co-wrote a paper about it. I looked it up. You called it the Multilingual Semantic MediaWiki project. Was that implemented, or is it still, a sort of theoretical thing?
It's somewhat theoretical, but actually it's also used, for example, in this Termipankki project I mentioned earlier. So it was basically written based on that implementation and a little bit cleaned up. But since then, even Semantic MediaWiki has gotten new features, like the monolingual text type, which can be used to store translations for various things, just using Semantic MediaWiki alone. But I think the main point here is how do we integrate these features with the translate extension, which provides central place to see what needs to be translating, consistent interface to translate them, and how to combine them to build a complete and simple to use system to translate everything that should be translated. I think that's a challenge.
Yeah. That's interesting. Actually, I didn't know about that multilingual text type in Semantic MediaWiki, so I need to do more research. I also have to ask, for personal reasons, if you looked into a multilingual cargo solution in addition to multilingual Semantic MediaWiki.
I haven't used cargo in any of my projects, so I don't have any specific ideas there at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Although, well, I guess in both cases, the having doing translation within the form is a major aspect of it. So, which is happens regardless of the storage system being used.
Yeah, translating the forms is of course one part, and that's it's more of user interface than translating the actual data itself. So,
right.
And well, the latter is of course more difficult.
I see. Well, I think that's all my questions. That wraps up this interview. Yeah, Niklas, it was great talking to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you to you too.
This has been Between the Brackets, a MediaWiki podcast. I want to again thank my guest, Niklas Laxström. See you next time.